You have to have permits in order to import them. You also, what on earth is that over there? This is an orchid mantis, and in the Q&A contest, somebody asked about orchid mantises and when they might be available again. Well, I'm sorry to say that I don't know the answer to that question, but I do have one that I can show you guys. Many of you will be familiar with them, but not necessarily everybody. Get a shot here of the face of this gorgeous insect. And those spiky raptorial forelegs. Always freehanding this. I film all of this on my camera phone, an iPhone. And this video here is going to do a few things. We're going to pick the winners from last Friday's Q&A contest. And I'm uploading this video once again on a Friday. And in the comments down below, well, in the caption down below, first read, I'm going to ask you guys a few questions, and I'll pick some winners and kick some prizes out to some people for answering those questions. To be eligible, you simply have to, I'm having a lot of trouble getting this mantis off of my hand. Some people would say it really likes me, but I just know that I can't see what I'm doing. I thought I had it that time. There you go. 11th time's the charm. Okay, so look for the new contest questions in the caption down below. We're about to pick the winners from last week's contest. I'm going to put that in at the tail end of the video if that's all you really care about. The majority of this video, 45 minutes or whatever it is me walking through local park during the day this time, and a few clips of some night hunts that Jesse and Courtney and I went on here earlier in the week. Saw a couple salamanders. But I want to apologize that while I was walking around answering the third set of questions, by the way, I decided rather than sitting on my couch like I normally do, filming myself answering the questions from last Friday's question and answer contest, that I would take you guys on a walk with me. I had my iPhone in my hand while I was walking, and it's probably a bit shaky and not the best video quality. In reviewing the files later during the editing process for this video, I decided that I was going to purchase a gimbal, and I didn't even know how to spell that word until I was doing some research on them, but I went and purchased one. And basically what it is it's a tool that keeps the camera steady while you're walking along. And I do really like the idea of being out in nature while I'm making videos with you guys, even if I'm just answering your questions. And of course, the ideal is that I'm out looking for bugs to share with you guys. So those are the objectives for this video here. I'm going to answer the questions, the third set of questions from last week's contest. We're going to pick the winners, and then, like I said, in the caption down below, read the questions, leave comments, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Really appreciate all of those things every single time you guys watch my videos. It's what keeps me going, it's what grows my channel, and the more it grows, the more I'm going to do for you guys, the more bugs I'm going to show you, the more places I'm going to take you. I'm very excited about all of that, and I appreciate your support. So please finish the video and let me know what you think in the comments down below. I welcome your comments about the video quality, and I look forward to getting that gimbal here. I'm actually going to have it here in a couple days now. And it's going to be really fun to go out and test that out, and I'll be taking you guys with me for that, and hopefully the video quality is much, much improved. Thank you very much. Going to do something a little different today as I answer the remainder of your questions. I'm trying to figure out which part of the camera here to look at, but I came out here go on a hike while I answer the remainder of your questions. Had to print them up. So this is what the Pacific Northwest looks like. I've taken you guys out on some nighttime adventures here on the YouTube channel, but just walking along this creek here and answer some of your questions. Next question, going to be doing a little bit of adjusting here as I figure out how to hold the camera, ask the questions, read the questions, answer the questions, just kind of see how this goes. Thought I'd do it for variety's sake though. C was the person's name who asked, how do you feel about US insect breeders selling illegal insects like non-native phasmids? And phasmids aren't really illegal, exotic ones. They are regulated, which means that in order to keep them, you have to have permits. In order to import them, you also... What on earth is that over there? Oh, it's a person with a large basket on their back and some plants in the basket, and it looked quite odd. I thought it was an animal, an unrecognizable animal. You'll see this person when we walk past in a moment. Get a look at it. Take a little break here from talking because it's weird. Hello. Couldn't figure out what kind of animal you were from a distance. And then I thought you were camouflaged with all that greenery you were packing. He had his headphones in, so he was as much surprised by me, I think, as I was by him. Anyway, they've done some remodeling in the park here lately. Looks quite nice. And so we were talking about the non-native phasmids. Just saw a stonefly fly past there. I have kept over 100 species over the years. Some of you have heard me say that before. Some of you may know me from back in those days. And it's been many, many years. In fact, it was the prior century when I last kept them, but it was the late 90s. And I got rid of all of my phasmids after I decided to start this bug business because they do require permits, because neither myself nor anybody else who I would be selling to would tend to have those. And as far as how I feel about other people keeping them, I don't really have a problem with that. That's really their business. And, you know, I mean, I miss having them and I wish that I could have them again someday, but there are plenty of other kinds of bugs that we can keep, and I content myself with those. And so the next question by You Don't Know Me was, what kinds of traits do you think make certain invertebrates more appealing to you, such as size, color, etc., and which of these traits do you think impresses you the most? Example, large millipede versus a super colorful one. So anyway, I don't really have any one characteristic that draws me to something. Probably the most common thing that draws me is when it's in a group like millipedes or mantises, a major group that is commonly kept as a pet. If it's a species that I've never had before, it's really just that simple. I'm always looking to see, because I've been in this hobby for a really long time, I'm always looking for something that I've never seen before, in the same way that you guys probably are. If you haven't had a dead leaf mantis, for example, that's the next best thing. And so I think I mentioned recently I've got some Caribbean dead leaf mantises It's my first time with them. I'm pretty excited about them. I've got some Deriplatus truncata. They've got a really huge triangular shield back there on the pronotum, that area behind the head. Pretty excited about working with those. I also have some Deriplatus lobata. I call them Malaysian deadleaf mantises. They're a little bit smaller, not as small as the Caribbeans actually, but very good breeders, and I look forward to raising them up and breeding them again. Move on to the next question here. It was from Allison Ferry Aby. If you are traveling and bug hunting, what do you look for when deciding to stop and hunt, such as when driving through the desert? That's a great question. And if you've never been on a collecting trip, I suppose I could compare it to just general sort of sightseeing. If you're driving through an area and maybe you see a bunch of rocks that look like they would be fun to climb, or perhaps you are out on a hike and just the general things that sort of draw your eye. Right behind me here, see a pretty creek, body of water here. Often when there's a change in the habitat, that's a good place to get out again and see if anything else has changed in terms of the bugs that are there. Just thought I'd stop here a moment so you guys can see this epiphytic moss growing on the tree behind me. Pretty characteristic here of the Pacific Northwest. We'll come down here and take a peek at something else. See up here in the tree, some ferns growing there. Very pretty. So I tend to look for a change in the habitat. Roadsides are really good. Disturbed areas are often very interesting. Open areas, of course, make it very interesting to be able to see what's around. Where there are sun breaks in the habitat, where the sun, it may not be showing in most places, but then you see a place where, over there behind me, where the sunlight is streaming through the trees, and you go over to a place like that, and a lot of the insects will be landing over there, warming themselves. And also in an open area, it's easier to see them. You don't have to, be turning leaves over. Very pretty right here. Thought I'd stop and show you. And so another thing is, if you're going through a landscape and you see a plant that you haven't seen, in the last few minutes, that's a good place to stop. Check out the plant, see what's going on with it, see if there's any kind of insects that are living in association with it that, may be jumping from plant to plant of that particular kind in the area. And that's really about it. It's a little bit harder to stay focused when you're trying not to trip over tree roots and large rocks in the walkway, making turns and whatnot. The next question here by Robert Lamb. Do you keep, or would you have ever considered keeping marine invertebrates, things like snails, shrimp, crabs, corals, marine worms, bivalves? Robert, I don't do a lot with aquatics. It's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, as they say. I tend to stick with terrestrial things. It's just a lot easier. You don't have to worry about water quality, changing the water out. A lot of the aquatic pets, in terms of bugs, tend to be predatory, and they often don't consume the entire body of their prey, and so it sits in the water and it fouls the water, and that can get a little stinky and whatnot. So I don't really do too much with aquatics. They're also a little bit more difficult to obtain, as I'm sure you've noticed, both on my website and just in your own travels on the internet. So no big plans to work with aquatics, and particularly not with marine organisms. Christina R says, if bugs and people were to trade places, which bugs do you think would like fast food the most? It's fun to get these questions that just sort of throw me off. I mean, the easy and obvious answer is roaches. I mean, what else are we gonna say? They show up in people's houses, some parts of the country. Trying to figure out where I am and where I want to go. Josh McCord says, probably one you get often, but what is the hardest part of running the online store? Definitely the most unpredictable factor are the humans that I interact with on a daily basis, all day, every day. You know, the post office not necessarily being reliable. For example, today I had 3 customers write to me and tell me that they checked the tracking on their packages that were supposed to be delivered today, only to find that the tracking reflected that their shipments were returned to the building that I shipped them out of. And so when I was down there dropping off my other packages, I asked the postal employees about that. And they told me that the packages were not, in fact, in that building at all, and were more than likely still on the way to the destination. And so, you know, you have a lot of people. One guy, I think in particular, this week told me he took time off of work to be home, and so that he could sign for the package on time, because that is one of the requirements for my live guarantee. And his package was not there on the delivery day. And so there's just a lot of stuff like that where, you know, customers and their feelings come into play. And, you know, I'm also a human being and affected by what other people are feeling, because I'm providing a service to them and they have paid me for that service. And unfortunately, the post office is less than perfect. I worked at UPS for 19 years, and I've talked to you guys about that a little bit on this channel before, but you know, I mean, I've just seen it all, and nothing surprises me anymore. You know, to say it doesn't faze me at all is inaccurate, because I really do care, and I really do work hard all day, every day, trying to provide the service that I promised to the customers. And of course, with that third party in between us, the shipping company, and it wouldn't matter if it was the Postal Service or FedEx or UPS. The reason I ship through the Postal Service is because they are the cheapest, and that's savings that the customer appreciates. A lot of my products are living, and they I haven't noticed a real big difference, to be honest, in the service failure rates between the 3 companies. I used to be an address correction clerk for UPS. I used to have to call customers there at UPS and explain to them, you know, why the driver couldn't deliver their package. And I probably picked up a lot of customer service skills through that job, which wasn't always particularly fun, believe me. But I just do my best every day to understand what the customer is going through. I myself receive more packages than they probably do in terms of living shipments, because much of what I sell, I first purchase from somebody else, and it's shipped to me, and not always on time, and not always by the most direct route possible. Packages are missorted sometimes. And you just learn to deal with all of these little variables over the course of years as I've been doing it, and through my experiences working at UPS. And so it's the people. It's the people that are always the unpredictable factor. I had one guy email me 17 times yesterday within a couple hours. I'm on the West Coast, he's on the East Coast. He got up early. I'm assuming he's just a kid. He had a question the day before, and I answered his question and told him that he needed to upgrade to express mail if he wanted the live guarantee, because he ordered spiders or something with priority mail, which is slower, and I don't guarantee live arrival. And he wrote back and said, like, in 17 emails over the course of a couple hours, did you get my email? Did you get my email? And, you know, I'm on the West Coast, I was sleeping. So anyway, stuff like that. You guys can probably, without having gone through it yourselves, relate to how I felt about reading the first, second, third, fourth,
17th email. But anyway, there's a lot more to that story, believe it or not. But anyway, he ended up canceling his order because he didn't want to upgrade to express mail in the end for the life guarantee. And so anyway, stuff like that happens all the time in the online business, which is a 24-hour per day, 7-day per week business. I do my best to keep up, but it's really, really hard to keep up with 17 emails from one person. Moving on. If you could, this is R.R. Lohmeyer. If you could discover a new species of your favorite insect family, how would you name it? After yourself, a friend, or a loved one? Pop culture reference. 100% I would name it after myself. I mean, I'm not even going to pretend to be, to have a problem with that at all, because I just would. I mean, I said when someone asked this question previously that we have few chances at immortality in our lives. And if you love species, if you love organisms, if you love insects, why not? Why not leave a little part of yourself to science? So that would be my first choice. And then, haven't really thought any further beyond that, what I would name the second one I discovered. And I do believe that I have probably found specimens of insects that are unknown to science. But let's go on to the next question here. Nick Fuentes, have you had anyone try to belittle you or put you down for having a unique hobby? Not a lot of people are fond of insects, so I was wondering if you had any specific times where you met somebody who judged you based off of keeping them. Absolutely. Like, every time I meet a new person in the real world outside of my online bubble here, where you guys are coming to me in the first place because of our shared interest, I definitely have interesting conversations with people when I tell them what I do. And it's always pretty fun in a social setting to be the odd one, because you don't get bored when you're the person at the dinner table, for example, with 20 strangers, and you're the one with the most interesting job and everybody wants to ask you questions. I don't mind being the center of attention. And I know from dealing with this for so many years that there's a lot of judgment, whether it's spoken or unspoken, as you talk to people about your strange hobby. But we have a saying here in Portland, Oregon. It's pretty famous. If you've ever watched the Portlandia show, which I think is canceled now, you're probably familiar with it. But it goes, keep Portland weird. And I've been keeping Portland weird since the 70s with my bug hobby. And I don't mind at all being the strange one with something to talk about when everybody else is, going to their 9-to-5 job and, either leaving work at work or wanting to complain about the office politics and the this or the that and, the numbers they were crunching all day. I'm perfectly content to take whatever bad some people might be experiencing as a result of their weird bug hobby with the good that I try to keep a focus on all the time. So there you go. Let's move on to the next question here. And scroll down here a little bit from Caden Bryant. I'm really interested in Pachnota beetles, especially Pachnota marginata or Aurantia, but from what I've seen, they are illegal to own in the United States. Is this true? Or are there some species that can be legally owned here? Do you know of any West African beetles that are legal to own? He's talking about a really colorful flower scarab beetle. And they are in the U.S. hobby. I have never personally seen them. I think I've seen some species of Pachnota way back in that previous life I sometimes talk about, but not for a long, long time. Maybe those are the ones that some people call sun beetles. There's actually quite a few different beetles called sun beetles. So when somebody asks me about sun beetles, I often have to look them up to see what people are calling sun beetles these days, because I always think of the radiant sun beetle, a really cool. Well, I gotta restart the camera here. I don't know how it turned off, but I didn't really complete answering. Which way do I want to go? Maybe I'll go up that way. Let's do that. I didn't completely finish answering the Pacnota question, and there are a couple African species that are now deregulated, as I'm told, and they're within the genus Goliathus. Goliath beetles, some of you will be familiar with those, big, giant, beautiful African beetles. And 3 of them are now supposedly deregulated, and at least one of them is being reared by hobbyists here in the United States. I hope that within the next couple of years that they'll start to show up in the hobby, but we'll see what happens with all of that. Still a developing situation, I think. So keep an eye out for that. The next question here is by Tristan, who says, I wonder if you have any experience breeding and keeping any bioluminescent insects, especially fireflies. The one that comes to mind, you have a 2-part question. I'll answer the other one in a minute here. Motixia. I went looking for Motixia in the mountains in California forests a few years back for the first time. They are a genus, and I think the only genus in the world of bioluminescent millipedes. Not fluorescent, where they glow under black light like scorpions do, but more like fireflies, where they're bioluminescent and produce light. Pretty amazing. And so I'd done all the research that I could do prior to the trip, reached out to a few people for some information. And on my first trip down, I think I made 3 trips over the years now, I was able to find them. And there's an article somewhere online, a couple different places where it was cited, sourced originally from Dr. Roland Shelley, who compared them to lights lighting up on the forest floor like stars in the night sky. I paused here for a moment, not to show you this cute little bridge I just walked past, but to show you this treehouse up here that is connected by a suspension bridge to the house behind me. Very cool little thing to see when I'm walking past. I've only ever seen it once or twice before, and now I know how to find it again the next time, because I was trying to find it again recently. The park kind of sprawls a little bit, but I'm not going to get lost today like I did that one time when I was doing an Instagram live stream and got lost for an hour and a half. Where was I? The Motixia. It's really cool to be out somewhere looking for something in another state, and you've dedicated, a week of your life maybe to going out and finding this thing, and you've scoured every bit of information you could about where they could be found, and then to go up there and to search around for a while, to struggle a little bit at first, and then to actually find them. It's pretty cool. It's a great feeling, really. And I brought them back, and some people kept them in wine coolers because they occur at elevation where it's very cold. And in the wine coolers, of course, they chill wine, and so the millipedes themselves will not do well at room temperature, and so you do have to keep them cold. And nobody really had a lot of success keeping them alive. It was kind of let's just try this and see if we can get them going. You don't really know for sure whether they're going to be able to survive at room temperature or not. And of course, there's some variation in what room temperature means anyway, but the first year there wasn't much success. I went another year, and at least one person, if not 2, were able to get eggs out of their Motixia, which was pretty cool. Where am I? So this is a 6-mile hike, but here I am up in a neighborhood. I'm gonna go back this way. There was another turn down here. So, and then I went one last time and tried it. I did really well. In fact, on the 3rd trip, and I went with different people each time, which is always fun and freshens up the situation. But I think I found 2 species of them on the more recent trip, and that was probably 3 years ago now. And pretty much the same thing. I shipped a bunch of them off to people, some of them friends who I considered, to have the best chance of really giving them a serious shot and keeping them alive. And then I sold some through the website to other people. So anyway, nobody was able to reproduce them in the end, although some people were able to keep them alive for months, which was pretty cool and exciting. And we all thought that something good was going to happen with all of that, but it didn't quite. So it is what it is. And needless to say, I won't be making any more trips down there to collect them, because they've proven to be more difficult, certainly, than what the average pet bug keeper is used to. But then in addition to that, even the veteran keepers with lots of experience had difficulty with them. I'm wondering if one of you will lay down your cloak or your cape for me to cross this mud. This might turn into the blooper reel very quickly here if I'm not careful. Sit down on this log for a moment and find the next question. Kelly Motaika. Oh, Tristan had one other question. I'd love your thoughts on community display tanks and any recommendations for good species for mixing. There's just so many. I mean, you can keep almost any millipede with almost any roach and isopods and springtails. Those are pretty much, the big ones that people would ordinarily keep with other things. For the desert theme tank, the desert hairy with the blue death feigning beetles. I know someone who's keeping dune scorpions with darkling beetles, smaller, not death feigning beetle, desert beetles, and that seems to be working just fine. So it really just depends on whether you want a moist tank or a dry tank, and the answer sort of varies on that basis. With all of the many different combinations of possibilities. I don't want to sit here for an hour and a half listing all of them. So if you want to narrow it down further and maybe ask in a future Q&A contest, which I'm going to try to do about once a month. I cannot figure out where the camera is on thing. It is over here. Okay. Oh, there it is. Hi, YouTube. Sorry, I've been over there with them the whole time. All right. Moving on to Kelly Mataika. Hi, Peter. My husband and I have recently gotten into the hobby of bug collecting. We live in upstate New York. What creatures are out our way that you think would be worth collecting and studying? Thank you for your time. I don't know about I've never been to the East Coast. I went to Wisconsin once when I was a kid. Oh, and I went to New Orleans a couple years ago, just to the city itself and not much beyond that. I don't really know about New York. I remember someone on Instagram sent me a picture of a grapevine beetle, which was pretty cool to see, that flew into their place there in New York this last year. And I believe you have the Narcissus americanus millipedes up there. I've had conversations with people many times over the years where they say, if I were to go out and collect some bugs, would you be interested in buying them? And my answer is always yes. And they say, much like you just did, what would you want from my area? And I always, through experience of having this conversation with countless thousands of people over the years, suggest to them, please try it this way. Please go outdoors, both at night with a headlamp on or a flashlight. Please go outdoors during the day. You tell me what you're seeing out there, because I've not been there before. And the truth is, where I'm standing right now, the habitat can be completely different 15 minutes down the trail here. The species represented could be affected by the creek down there, for example, or the amount of sunlight streaming through the trees in a particular place. The time of year can greatly affect what you're going to find. And so really the best thing you can do is just to get out there, look around, see what there is to see. And that's really the best I can do. Now, if I were making a trip to your area, I would probably go to Bug Guide, and because I'm registered there, and it's free, by the way, you just log in and see what occurs in your state, and they break it down by counties. Or you can type into the search engine even a city name, and it will generate results. And so you can get a really good idea for what occurs there and what to keep an eye out for. So that would be a practical recommendation for you on what's there, and based on my lack of knowledge on the topic. Estella de Grande says, were there some globular springtails under that rock? And she's talking about in my desert video that I did recently where everybody started asking these questions. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw like some reddish orange globular shaped things. I don't know if they were springtails or if they were bark lice. They were moving so quickly, and I didn't actually see them until I was watching the video back, and I think they like went from being in the frame to just slightly out of the frame in very short order. And so I don't know the answer to that question, but it's cool that you saw that, because I saw it too and wished that I had noticed them and maybe looked for them a little bit harder. My springtail culture from the desert down there is doing really well. I actually checked on it right before I came out here for this walk. Question, she says, how did you get that excellent close-up of the springtail in this video? Any lighting techniques or special equipment? I have a macro lens and still struggle to get good in focus video of my little residence. I actually do have this little attachment thing here, a company, and you can see their name there. Their name is Clip, and I have this little attachment that is specifically made for this iPhone that I have now. I have had in the past other attachments, magnifiers, that I have purchased off of Amazon or eBay, and they just clip on over the cell phone. I don't know what kind of camera you're using, but you know, macro lenses are very expensive, and I'm very grateful to Clip for having sent this to me, because I've taken some really wonderful shots, mostly for my Instagram channel in the last, I don't know, 8 or 12 months since they sent it to me. Crosby M says, any tips for a newbie bug collector? I'm planning on going on some Alaskan bug adventures over the spring and summer. I mean, take containers. I've got one in my pocket right now. I was wearing these cargo shorts so that I can have bug vials in my pockets and 1,000 other things, no doubt. Take the vials. I mean, if you take a net, if you want to increase the chances of something flying by, that you can catch that. Take a headlamp, very important for the nighttime collecting, and in my experience, you will always find more bugs. What is that? Oh, I thought I had a beetle there, but it's bird poop. Looks like they're finding some berries that I haven't seen yet. The headlamp's critical. The night collecting, you find more bugs out at night than you do during the day, in pretty much every location. I know that probably doesn't seem possible to people, but there are so many more moths than butterflies, for example, out at night. You know, other than that, the trick is just basically spend as much time as you can outside. You know, when people go on a hike with me, they know that they're not going for exercise. They're going to be spending a lot of time stopping and waiting for me while I turn individual leaves over on plants. And so I always have a good time. I can't promise that anybody else will. I'm going to walk across that. It was time for me to lean in and read the next question. And I thought about doing it while I was walking on that log, but I'm 45 years old and I've learned a little bit about personal safety and preservation over the years. Armed reptile, are there U.S. native Scolopendra species? Are the native Scolopendra kept similarly to Asian species? You know, I'm not really much of a centipede expert. I've never like intentionally bred centipedes or anything, put a male and a female together. I've had females birth eggs and clutches over the years. I like the way the sun's streaming through there just then. And you know, the desert species, it seems that the conventional method for keeping the desert species and even a lot of the tropicals now is to put them on a mostly inorganic bed of substrate, like small pebbles and whatnot. And that supposedly keeps down the amount of bacteria and the foot rot that can occur in centipedes sometimes. I do recommend that you keep the desert centipedes somewhat dry, but that you leave a water dish in there for them. If you're not keeping the substrate moist, you know, pull out the food that they don't eat or the food that they don't finish so that it doesn't contribute to mold in the enclosure and mites coming in. But I think it's safe to say that and I don't sell any of the tropical centipedes, so I don't have a lot of experience keeping them personally, but just through interacting with hobbyists over the years, I think it's safe to say that you want to keep the tropical species like the Dahani in a more moist environment. But, you know, I mean, this isn't a natural setting, it's a captive setting, and you may find yourself dealing with issues like foot rot or mold. And probably the best thing you can do is to change the substrate every now and then to keep the substrate and the air in there from stagnating, have some ventilation. But, you know, with a humidity loving species, you have to kind of monitor the variables carefully, make sure that your ventilation is high enough to where the air isn't stagnating, and make sure that you're also maintaining some humidity in there for it. And again, a water dish, whether it's a desert species or a tropical species, is never a bad idea. So then the centipede can decide whether it needs to hydrate itself a little bit or not. But a little bit out of my area of expertise, the centipedes are, and particularly the exotic ones. Wayne Nemick says, what is one place that you want to go to and explore for bugs that you haven't yet? And what bugs would you be looking for? I think I've alluded to a trip I'm going to be making down to California soon to look for the native pill millipedes. So that's the next trip-based target. More generally, I'm just looking forward to spring coming around again here. We are now at the beginning of March. Spring has definitely sprung here in the Portland area. I expect to be seeing some nocturnal tiger beetles out here. Last night I was able to see a few folding door trapdoor spiders, which was pretty cool, while Jesse and Courtney were out at the park here with me.
It really is amazing. This is a folding door trapdoor spider. That really is cool how it is in the leaf like that. Now when I get too close, I will scare it off.
She's got a new account called Cascade Amphibians. She has a blog at cascadeamphibians.com. And also on Instagram, she's at cascadeamphibians.com. If you guys are into the Pacific Northwest amphibian fauna at all, you might check that out. She's going to be putting a lot of time into that. And of course, she is Jesse's fiance, Jesse, who is Shapes in Nature, who you see appearing regularly on my channel here and probably in this video too. You ever seen their eggs before?
Not to my knowledge.
I have no idea what they would look like. I wonder if I've ever seen them and
You know,
thought they were something else.
I've seen Ensatinas here.
The eggs.
Eggs.
Oh, is there eggs in there?
No, we're just wondering what they would look like.
I'm assuming most of them are. He's got some orange legs.
Yeah, from back here it kind of looks like a rough skinned.
Yeah, a little bit. That's
Can you
cool.
get some photos?
Well, I will.
It does look like it's gonna pop.
Yeah, they don't know much about breeding of salamanders in general, but I think most of them either breed in the fall and lay in the spring, or vice versa. Don't know.
Hey, check out these long-legged mites and this aphid here.
Huh.
See those, Courtney?
Yeah, totally. Look at these crazy ass little fungus balls.
Oh my gosh. And
Actually, you know what? Those could be eggs. Who knows? They're probably too small, but they do look like that sometimes. They have like a little
talking about? Let me see.
thing with a...
I've seen nude eggs before. They're probably not much different.
Looks like fungus,
be.
but
It's probably fungus.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they're big enough.
They're in a cluster.
Well, not all of them.
Well, I guess nude eggs are, but I don't know if those ones are or not.
Who knows?
it looks like fungus. I've seen that stuff around here before.
Okay.
I've always assumed it was fungus, but I've never seen it growing on top of a
Lick it.
Ensatina.
Find out.
So, yeah, anything that moves, Wayne, anything that moves. And we got another question here from Gina Lewis on page 2 of my little printout here. Pardon me while I move the camera around. I have really been wanting an orchid mantis. I have been checking your website periodically for many months, and every time I log on, you were out of stock. Please help me sell. Yeah, believe me, I want the orchid mantises at least as bad as you do, because if I get orchid mantises, I make at least 2 people happy. Me and you. So, and generally I always get a lot more than 2 of them. I pretty much rely on people I've sold to in the past to support and supply my website with things like that. Presently there are none on the radar, but when I get home, I'm going to check my email. I'm going to say a small prayer to the great mantis goddess and hope that there's a message there with somebody selling some orchid mantises or offering them to me. But it's probably unlikely. Most of my prayers don't get answered. Let's go on to the next one here. But I do, to the extent that is possible, make good bugs happen. House 1. This is the last question for the entire contest. Okay, my question is, do you think we will ever find a way to breed velvet ants? And if it involves a type of parasitic egg laying, would you consider it? 2 questions. Love the website and channel. Thanks for the question, House 1. I do think that somebody is eventually going to be breeding the orchid or the velvet ants. They are parasitic. They deposit an egg, usually on a ground nesting bee, larva, or pupa. And so the adult female wasp comes along. They find a burrow in the ground from a solitary ground nesting bee, and that adult female deposits an egg on the immature specimen of a different kind of bee, and then it hatches, the egg hatches, and the baby velvet ant, the larva, consumes the other organism, the host. And I mean, it just seems completely possible that somebody could replicate that in captivity, and it could be something as simple as going out into an area where they occur, if you're lucky enough to live in such a place or to go to such a place. Dig up some pupae of ground nesting bees, put an adult female velvet ant with them, and just see what happens. I mean, at the very least, you're going to fail, which simply mirrors every other attempt anybody's ever made. I thought it would be interesting also to try it with a mealworm beetle pupa. A lot of people are honeybee keepers, and I think it would be really interesting to pull a larva out or a pupa of a honeybee, bury it in some dirt or sand, and just see what happens. I mean, once again, worst thing that can happen is it results the same as every other attempt ever did. So, yeah, I'm optimistic about it. It is my nature to be optimistic about such things. It's fun to try. It's fun to do this citizen science, and to be the first to do something is always pretty cool. So, yeah, go out there and do it. Let me know how it goes for you. Maybe I'll do an interview with you here on the channel one of these days. Thank you guys, one and all, for the questions. And I'm going to be weaving some other things into this video. I know not what, but we'll see how it all comes together. Like I said, Jesse and Courtney and I went on some walks yesterday at night, and so I might throw some of that footage in here too, just to freshen things up and keep it interesting. If you liked the walking through the forest format better than me sitting on my couch, I did too. So let me know down in the comments, please. And if you have any follow-up questions about the questions I just answered, whether they were yours or not, please feel free to ask. And this video will go up on Friday, and we will be launching another contest as yet to be announced. Thanks a bunch, and I'll see you guys again soon.
All right, we're going to pick winners for the contest. Let me see what the prizes were. I know the first place prize was a $30 gift certificate to shop.bugsandcyberspace.com, my website. Second place prize was the Portland Insectarium Coloring and Activity Book. And the cicada sticker, I never really got a good shot of this previously. I want to see if I can get that. Oh, do you see that glitter now? Doesn't that look amazing? Looks really, really good. It's even better in person, I promise. Anyway, those are the 3 prizes. And for those of you that are just getting to the tail end of this video where I was out answering questions, we're picking the winners from last Friday's contest. This has now been the 3rd video where I answered questions about that. We're gonna pop over here to this random number picker. Gonna pop in the URL from that YouTube video. There were 113 comments on this video. And again, I usually reply to every one, so it looks like maybe there were 60 or so people who had asked questions. Well, it's gonna tell us there were 52 people, so there were a few back and forth conversations. So 52 people asked questions in that contest, and I have answered all of them, I believe. And we're going to pick the winner, and we're going to go in reverse order here. So for the cicada sticker, the winner for that is going to be An Endless Cold, who asked, do you ever go out in search of specific species of bugs? So An Endless Cold, I believe this is the first time you've won a contest here on my YouTube channel. Please contact me through email or on Instagram. For some reason, I think you're an Instagrammer because that name sounds very familiar. Thank you very much for participating. I really appreciate that. And now we're gonna go for the second place prize, which was this coloring and activity book. Drawings, little find a words, all kinds of cool stuff in here, a little maze on a spider. So that's the second place prize. And the winner for this is Chelsea Altram. Glad to see you win, Chelsea. I know you placed a nice order with me earlier this week, and her question was the one about setting up isopod colonies. She has been measuring the changes in the colors and light sensitivity of her isopods from year to year as they've reproduced. And so that was a really interesting question. I don't think my answer was, it didn't satisfy me as much as I wanted it to, partly because I don't personally try to cull out certain color forms like a lot of other hobbyists do. The isopod hobby has really exploded in recent years with people isolating certain color forms and then breeding them with the similar looking ones to produce true breeding or almost true breeding populations of oddly colored isopods that are different than the color forms exhibited by the majority of the wild population. And now finally for the $30 gift certificate to my website for shopping. You guys can get whatever you want, and always it's kind of fluid. It doesn't have to be exactly 30 bucks. And you just contact me and we'll informally figure out, you tell me what you like on the website and we'll work it out. Here we go for the grand prize for this contest. And the winner is, hi, I'm Trace, who asked, I'm curious to know how many types of arthropods you currently breed. And I never answer that question. I just never do because I don't even know the answer. And he said that, and Trace, I actually don't know if it's a male or female name. Sorry about that, Trace. Raising multiple generations of anything is what interests me most. You may have answered this somewhere before though. So thank you all, not just the winners, but everybody who participated in the contest. Always a lot of fun for me. There is nothing that I like more than doing question and answer videos. It is my ultimate favorite kind of YouTube video to make, although I really enjoy taking the trips and looking back at the footage that I take from the trips. You know, when I'm out there by myself or with my friends and stuff in, you know, away from home, I really enjoy just being there. But the videos themselves, interacting with you guys, helping you with your questions, nothing really beats that for me. It's always been my love, which is part of the reason why I've had my website up for 23 years. And with that, thank you all. And please hit the like button. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And don't forget that this is an active contest. Read the caption down below. Respond with answers in the comments section for your chance to win the next set of prizes, which I will also be announcing in the comments down below.
Hey, if you like me, give me one of those thumbs up. And please subscribe and hit the little bell so you know when I post next. Please share me with your friends on social media. Thank you for watching.